This video, I'm going to show you how you can tear objects using my nCloth simulation. For this tutorial, I'm going to use this simple plain object, but you can use whatever object you want to apply the simulation to. So the first step is remeshing this object, because this object has two straight edges, which will look too artificial when we tear this object. So we're going to use remesh tool to randomize this topology. So if you open up this tool setting, you're going to see this as default, but we can change max edge length to custom value, and this basically indicates the resolution of the result. So you can keep this number quite low for higher resolution, and the bottom one indicates the randomization of the final result. And probably I'm going to keep the value in between 70 and 90. Let's set it to 80, for instance. And you can actually change these values later, so you can tweak the values if you don't like the result. So I think this is gonna work. So let me go to Effects Workspace, and before I create the simulation, let me delete the history and rotate this object to see the effects better. And now I can create nCloth simulation with this object selected. And if I run the animation, it's just gonna fall to the ground. So let me select those four corners of this object, and if I go to end constraint, you're gonna see transform constraint. So if I add it, those four corners are fixed, so it won't fall anymore. Now we're gonna use the same end constraint, but this time we're going to use tearable surface. Before we create the constraint, we have to determine which vertices we want to apply that constraint. So I'm going to hold tab key to use brush selection tool and select certain areas that we want to tear. It's quite important to keep your selection continuous to avoid any remaining connections when you run the simulation. So that seems to be fine. Right, then I can now add a little more selection. If you think it's enough, then you can add the actual constraint. Now if you run the simulation, it starts to tear apart. To make it more dramatic, I'm going to create a sphere and animate this sphere by pressing Shift W, which will key the translation of this object. And I can do the same thing on the frame 25 or something like that. So if I run this, I just forgot to add a passive collider. So with the sphere selected, you can create a passive collider. Then it starts to affect the enclosed object. So at the moment, the glue strength seems to be too low, so even with this small hit, the entire object tears apart. So to prevent that, you can select the end constraint, the terrible one, and you can go to dynamic constraint shape node. Then if you scroll to the bottom, you're gonna see glue strength. You can increase this glue strength value for more stronger connection. So you can see the difference right away. If you add too much glue strength, it's not gonna tear apart. It's gonna push back like that. So you can find the best value for your desired result. And another tip is, on the default setting, you're not gonna see the back of the surface because the double-sided lighting is turned off. So you can go to the top of your viewport and go to the lighting menu and enable two-sided lighting, so you can now see the both side. So this is a simple method for tearing your object using nCloth simulation and nConstraint. And that's it for this tutorial. Thank you for watching.